Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news this Thursday morning, and lots to get into. Talks of transfer budgets, a numerous amount of players that we're looking at to move on, move in, and also some interesting stories coming about Erik ten Hag and what his immediate plans will be at Manchester United, not just in relation to transfers, but the structure, how his job will be. We've had The Athletic saying that actually he won't have total control of transfers and could be vetoed by the recruitment team, which is basically what's been happening for the last few years. Is that a bit of a concern? Look, everything's not rosy in the garden. Erik ten Hag is the perfect appointment for Manchester United, but he must be given control to make the decisions. And are we starting to see those things not be the case? We'll delve into that, of course. Also, big headline, 200 million transfer race. Some people would want to take a zero off that. Apparently, we've only got a £20 million transfer budget. Ridiculous. We'll delve into all of that. But before we delve all into that, the first thing I want to say is today's show is sponsored by the good people at OneFootball. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about OneFootball loads of times over the years, which begs the questions, why have you not downloaded it? With the links in the description, you can keep up to date with all your latest football news, transfer news around the UK and around the world, in fact. I can play you a little video on it as well, which is always going to be very, very helpful if I can find it. There we go. So I use OneFootball as my number one destination for football news, transfer updates, player data, and of course the latest match day scores. I don't know what magic they've got going on at OneFootball, but I always get score notifications fastest when I'm on there. So if you want to be the most informed football fan in the world, then head to the description, or you can scan the QR code on screen, which I'll show you in a minute, and download OneFootball totally for free today. Get all your football news there for free on Android and on iOS. You can hold your camera up against that QR code, which is on my left as well, to get it. So big shout out to OneFootball for that. Where should we start? So there's a story in the Daily Mail saying that Manchester United have got a £20 million budget. There's also The Athletic saying that we're looking for two midfielders, a right winger and a striker. But what I wanted to just get into first of all was to say that we did a video yesterday lunchtime. I did the video yesterday lunchtime talking about Ten Hag's top two transfer priorities, Timber and Rice. Now, I put a tweet out on Monday night saying that the Erik ten Hag deal was basically done, and within 24 hours it was widespread news that was the case. I also put a tweet out that Ronaldo is going to stay and that Rashford is going to stay, and I'm very convinced that those things will be coming out over the next few weeks as well. The same person I spoke to on Monday was the same person I spoke to yesterday morning, who told me about Timber, and lo and behold, yesterday evening you couldn't move for United sources and journalists talking about Timber being the priority. So again, that information is very, very good. And whether we can get Timber and Rice, I think it's very difficult, but Timber, Rice, Nunez seem to be the three players that we're looking at. So Athletic coming out this morning saying two midfielders, a right winger and a striker. I disagree. I think that's a bit of a lazy old bit of news. I think maybe Man United are putting it out there, but I genuinely do not think we are looking for two midfielders, a right winger and a striker. I think we're looking for a centre back, a centre midfielder and a striker. What we'll get, who knows? It's not about being right, is it? It's about whether we get the right quality players in. But the information is good. Darwin Nunez, I want to talk about him in a little bit, because they do say in The Athletic that we're beginning talks about Darwin Nunez. But I suppose the first thing to delve into is this story from the Mail. So this is coming from Chris Wheeler in the Mail. Take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. So he's saying that Manchester United want to strengthen the spine of the team in the summer with a new centre-back, a central midfielder and a striker. Well, actually, it's not Chris I got the information from, but that is the same information we had yesterday. So he starts off quite well there. Midfield options for the summer transfer window are believed to include Declan Rice, yes. Calvin Phillips, yes. Ruben Neves, yes. Basuma, I'm not so sure. Milinkovic-Savic, no. And Tchouaméni, I'm not convinced either. So, he's throwing a lot of names there. I don't believe we're in for Milinkovic-Savic. I think this is like 5 years old that we were looking at for him under Mourinho. Tchouaméni, we weren't even looking at last summer, so I'd be very surprised if we're looking at him now. Basuma seems to be a bit of a fan favourite as well. Ruben Neves, Phillips and Declan Rice I would agree with. With a replacement needed for Cavani and possibly Ronaldo, it is thought Manchester United could make a move for Harry Kane or Darwin Nunez. That's a very broad stroke statement. What striker are we going to look for? Oh, Harry Kane, Darwin Nunez. We do like Darwin Nunez. The Athletic are talking about Darwin Nunez as well. I spoke about it yesterday, having been told about it in the morning by somebody very credible. So on Darwin Nunez, I think we definitely do need him. We need a striker like that. He's 22. I must admit, the last month, I've seen a lot more of him than I had done before. A lot of what I'd seen of him before, because I don't watch the Portuguese league and I'm not going to be one of these people who pretends that they do. A lot of what I'd seen of him were highlight packages and, reading articles, etc. But watching him play against Ajax 2 times, watching him play against Liverpool 2 times, to be fair, the research I'd done and the research a lot of people had spoken about, I thought was bang on. He's a very exciting striker. He can score all sorts of goals. He's not particularly slow. He's good in the air. But the thing that stands out to me about Darwin Núñez is he's not an £80 million striker. He's just not. His link-up play is not as good as I thought it was going to be. I've said, is he the new Cavani? I think he can be. He's only 22. There's a lot of things he can improve on. And I'll come to it in a minute. But his overall link-up play is not great. It's not Lukaku bad, but it's not great. But what I would say is, you look at what Ten Hag's done with Sebastian Haller at Ajax. Darwin Núñez has got a lot of the principles that you need as a striker. If you bring him under Ten Hag, who can build and improve his hold-up and link-up play, in 3 years or 2 years, he could be a superstar. The problem is, I haven't got a problem with his link-up play. It's not great. I haven't got a problem with it because you can improve on it. My problem is the price that Benfica want for him when you've still got uncertainties over aspects of his game. For me, he's a €60 million striker, which is £50 million. That's the limit. But the problem is, so many people are looking at him. I think he's being hyped beyond what he is. He may well end up being worth spending 80 million on, because he might end up being a 100 million striker in 2 years' time. But he isn't an £80 million striker for me at the moment. He's a €60 million striker. But I don't think we'll get him for that. So it'll be very interesting. I like him, and I think he can be the solution. But he's not the solution at the moment, and I think he's a bit overpriced. George says, just hope we can clear our average players. Thank you very much. I'm actually going to do a head-to-head. Carmine, welcome to Members Club. You just reminded me. I'm actually going to do a head-to-head, a bonus head-to-head over the Easter weekend for people. You don't have to vote for this one. So I'm going to do Núñez against, we'll probably compare him to a striker in the Premier League or something like that. So we'll put that on the members section as a bonus one. Obviously, we've already got Maguire versus Timber and Anthony versus Rashford on there. So if you want to become a member, click the join button and you'll find those videos on the homepage if you are a member. Do you think clubs will want to charge more for players because we've been willing to pay it in the past, says Matty Ross? Well, we're going to come back to that, Matty. There's lots to get into the show this morning. So that was the situation about the striker. Chris Wheeler also goes on to say that Manchester United have said to have discussed Antonio Rudiger, who's available on a free from Chelsea, and Timber. And then he goes on to say, with agents being told by Manchester United that failing to qualify for the Champions League could slash the club's budget to as low as £20 million, many targets could be out of reach for the new manager, Erik Ten Hag. So I want to talk about that centre-back thing, but the title of the show is Transfer Race £200 million. And this is the big line that I really wanted to bring in. So I think from that article in the Mail, and I want to talk about the Telegraph article as well, but I think from that article in the Mail that hit last night, numerous updates, of which we've been through the striker, we've been through the midfield, etc. But the big one that resonated with a lot of people last night was this whole United's budget could be as low as £20 million. Now, this is not the first time that we've heard this. We will talk about the centre-back scenario in a minute, so remind me about that. But look, I feel that the information that we're getting at the moment is really good. Monday night, as I said, I put 3 posts out and I'm nailed on. I think all 3 are correct. Rashford will stay, Ronaldo will stay, and Ten Hag obviously done, which we now know 24 hours later was good brief. And yesterday with Timber and Rice, we're now hearing about Timber, but from everybody now. So we're well briefed. And that leads me to say with real conviction that there is absolutely no chance that Manchester United's budget is going to be as low as £20 million. Not in a million years. The information, and I think this is good information, is that United's transfer budget will be somewhere between 150 and 200 million pounds. That will encourage people. I think that is right. And some people will think, well, that's bollocks. But there's good reasons to believe this, right? Manchester United, do you think the clubs will want to... Manchester United always back their new manager. They always do that. David Moyes did get money. It felt like David Moyes was here for a week, but we still gave him touching on, 80 million, which 10 years ago is the equivalent of about 120 million now, isn't it? He got Fellaini and he got Mata. It was a bit of a terrible first summer for him, but that's because Moyes is just, wasn't prepared. Van Gaal got a lot of money. Mourinho got a lot of money, especially in their first summers. And Ollie had a lot of money in his first summer as well. So Ten Hag will automatically get a lot of money. I would say 100 million. Europa League. We always spend money when we're in the Europa League and not the Champions League because they're desperate to get back in the Champions League. Add another 50 million, so that's 150 million. And then we're going to shift a lot of wages, about £50 million a year of wages. So I think our transfer budget's going to be somewhere between 150 and 200 million spend. I'm not talking net spend. Net spend could be as low as 100 because a net spend is what you spend against what you sell. So we could make 50 million in wages, 50 million in sales, spend 200 million, but you take that 100 off, so it's 100 million net spend. I think we will spend between 150 and 200 million pounds. Also, the club are fully aware and need to be fully aware that every other year we've been in the Europa League, we've only been in the Europa League once and then we've got back in the Champions League. There's a very real chance we could be in the Europa League 2 years in a row. There's a very, very real chance we will not be in the Champions League next year. The club are aware of this, I'm aware of this, and you're aware of this. So therefore, they can't mess this summer up. It's not just a normal summer where you go, new manager, 100 million, Europa League, 50 million, 150 million, get us top four. It won't be enough. They've got to go beyond that this year. They've got to go a little bit more, and the club know this. So this 20 million budget, or United might only spend 50 million, it's a load of nonsense. The club know Solskjaer wasted a load of money. Even Ronaldo is considered to be a bit of a waste of money because you buy Ronaldo, you don't expect to be in the Conference League. So it's not Ronaldo's fault, but they poured a load of money into that Ronaldo deal. And apart from shirt sales and off-the-field activity, it's not really delivered on the pitch. Varane has not really delivered value for money because he's missed so many games. Cavani has delivered no value for money at 200 grand a week. So the club wasted a lot, and that's before you start talking about people like Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, 130 million quid there. So United are fully aware that they've wasted a lot of money on Solskjaer, and they're fully aware that there's huge problems with the squad, which we'll talk about in relation to the Telegraph article in a minute. So the transfer budget for United, I believe, firmly will be between 150 and 200 million pounds spend. They're also fully aware that next season, fourth place is not easy. Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, top three. You'd pretty much nail on that. And then Arsenal, Spurs will fight for fourth with us. Potentially Newcastle come into that equation. Potentially Villa come into that equation. Potentially Leicester come back into that equation. And what about West Ham? So fourth place next season is not easy. So they'll have to be very clever in the transfer market. We've basically got to have a better summer than Arsenal, Spurs, Newcastle, Villa and anybody else who's fighting for fourth. But remember, most of those clubs are in a stronger standing start position anyway. Their squads are better now. So not only have we got to have a better window, we've got to have a much better window. And it's also why the Europa League spot is very important, because at least if we're in the Europa League, it's another we've got two chances to get in the Champions League. Would you buy a new centre-back or give Axel a well overdue chance as Lee Taylor? I'd buy a centre-back. Paul Roberts, welcome to the member club. Thank you very much. So do not panic about £20 million transfer budgets, because there is absolutely no way this board are not fully aware that we need to spend big in the summer. So I'm 100% sure that will happen. And I do think that £200 million transfer race is not a bad title, because Nunez is going to cost you 60, a midfielder is going to cost you 60, a centre-back's going to cost you about 30, 40, and then you need a fourth signing. So it's about £200 million worth of spending, Manchester United. Trevor says, man said Villa. Look, mate, I don't really give a shit. You can mock me, you can laugh all you like. I personally think Aston Villa are a team that's much better equipped than we are at the moment and could well be a challenge next season. We'll see. There are some great players out there right now. Let's go United, says SK. So coming back to that centre-back option, the Mail say that Manchester United are said to have discussed Rudiger, who is available on a free from Chelsea, and Timber. I feel that these are definitely the two players that Manchester United are looking at centre-back. We know about Akanji. I think that United probably have the same opinion as the fan base about Akanji. He's good. He's good. I think he played. I watched him play for Switzerland against England the other week, and he's good. Is he a centre-back that Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea want? No. Do Bayern Munich want him? No. Is he 22 with growth in him? No, he's 27. Is he a good deal because he's got 1 year left on his contract? Yes. Is it the sort of deal that makes United great again? Not really. And I think that's the problem with the Akanji deal. I think United are looking at it because because Rangnick will have said he's a good player. He can play in a system where he's mobile and he can play out from the back, and he's got 1 year left on his contract. We might have to go for a Kanji because that's the sort of player that you sign when you're not a big club and you're in the Europa League or the Conference League. We might have to go for a Kanji, but I think they're aiming for Timber or Rudiger, definitely. MT, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. So let's move on to some other stories. Laurie Whitwell has said that agents have been told that Man United are looking for a striker, 2 central midfielders and a right winger. Focus will inevitably fall on head of recruitment Steve Brown to present viable targets. Talks are expected over Darwin Núñez. I mean, I disagree with this story from The Athletic. I'm sure, being Laurie Whitwell, he's probably been briefed by the club, but I disagree that we're going to buy a striker, 2 central midfielders and a right winger. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I do like the idea of a right winger. I do like the idea of 2 midfielders and a striker. I mean, look, if we got someone like, I don't know, if we got Neves, Lema, Anthony and Núñez, I'd be very happy with those 4 players. But I mean, we need a centre-back. It was Eric Bailly's birthday yesterday, and it was United's biggest result of the month because they're all dancing on the training ground and they're all out for a party last night. I mean, United admin, I was saying they need the sack. I mean, at the end of the day, apologies to the United admin, he's probably on crap money being told to do so many posts a day, and you know, he's swimming in shit, really. There's not nothing he can post that he's not going to get in trouble, and it could be a her, I don't know. But the reality is that United are out for Eric Bailly's birthday last night, and in the day they're all dancing around on Insta and stuff, and it's just not lost on me the mentality of this football club. You know, we've got pictures of players out for Eric Bailly's birthday last night, and we've got pictures and videos of players dancing around with Eric Bailly. 2 things: who's Eric Bailly? He wasn't even on the bench last week. We never use him. Why is he suddenly a big player that we need to be dancing around? We don't use him. He's been completely lied to. He shouldn't even be at the club. We don't use him. And point 2, it's Champions League day, lads. It's Champions League quarter-final day. I don't want to see you out having a party. I don't want to see you having a bloody dance. It's just they don't read the room, do they? And there's nothing. I mean, I'm not saying stay in or anything like that, but just don't post stuff. You know, just don't post stuff. So look, the reason I mentioned Eric Bailly is because quite rightly I think he's going to leave. So we do need to buy a centre back. Some close to Manchester United believe Solskjaer compromised on sanctioning sales to make sure he had enough options. Anthony Martial and Lingard were 2 players Solskjaer kept last summer to guard against being left short. That's from The Athletic as well. I mean, that fits nicely in with the story about Eric Bailly, really. I mean, look, it just goes... Look, I don't want to talk about Solskjaer. I still think there's people who want to rewrite the past. I saw something the other day. I think it was a goal against PSG. A good goal we scored against PSG away from home. I think it was the Rashford goal. And people were like, oh, what a great move it was. And I'm like, wasn't that... That wasn't even this season. That was 18 months ago. Were the fans in the ground? I don't know. I mean, but I'm like... What we're trying to do about Solskjaer's reign? Just because he's a club legend as a player, like as a manager, he's a bloody joke. It was an embarrassment. He was basically a puppet to the Glazers, who let the club fall apart with a smile on his face. I mean, you know that clip of is it Naked Gun or something like that, where he's like this, everything's fine, and behind him there's burning buildings. That's basically what I think about Solskjaer. I love Solskjaer. I think he's a nice guy, legend as a footballer, but as a manager, his reign, unfortunately, was a joke. And it was. And it makes me laugh that people want to try and pretend it was decent. I mean, just look at Wikipedia at the results in the month before he got the sack. But also look at things like that. Anthony Martial, Donny van der Beek, Jesse Lingard, Eric Bailly were all lied to last summer. Dean Henderson. There are more. Juan Mata, Nemanja Matic. There'll be more than that. First team's players lied to, so he kept him at the club in case he had an injury crisis. I mean, it's just amateur hour. It's amateur hour. And it's cost us big time because what it's done is it's provided the situation that Ralf Rangnick's inherited, where Ralf Rangnick comes into a club on its knees full of players who are stuck here who don't like it. And that's why we've got so many dressing room leaks and cliques, and it's a mess. And Solskjaer caused that because he bottled it. He bottled it. He should have said, Lingard, West Ham, off you go, 20 million. He should have got Martial out the club. He should have let Donny go to Everton in the summer. He shouldn't have signed Eric Bailly on a new contract. He should have sold Dean Henderson last summer. But he didn't. He went, yeah, you'll get plenty of game time. And it didn't happen, and it all fell apart. Only concern is the wages, stroke loan, Deadwood, says Nick. I was born in 1990 when United started to dominate. I just got engaged last month, looking at a wedding next year and children the year after. United will dominate again when my son is born. Mark my words, says James. There we go, positive. Daniel Kirk says, Eric wanted assurances over budget. No way he takes the job on 20 million. Yeah, it's a nonsense story, that is, Daniel, isn't it? And Tiernan says, looking at summer signings, I think the club will go for relegation sides. So Calvert-Lewin, Sarr, Raphinha, depending who drops. Ishmael Sarr from Watford would be disappointing. This is a player that we were looking at a couple of years ago. Didn't want him then. Don't really feel he's done enough to justify coming to United now. Raphinha, I think, will go to Barcelona. Calvert-Lewin, I wouldn't go anywhere near him. For me, Calvert-Lewin, I see him more in GQ magazine than I do scoring goals. And that's the truth. I see him more as a male model than I do as a footballer. And fair play to him, if that's what he wants to be. But I don't see a footballer there. He's exactly the wrong profile of player that United need. I mean, do we want another social media influencer at this club? I wouldn't go anywhere near Calvert-Lewin, and Everton would want 60, 70 million pounds for him. And that's true. That is true. He is. I've got the latest GQ magazine and he's in it. So I don't want Calvert-Lewin. 100% no. Anyway, interestingly, I do want to bring you this. There was a story today, and I just want to reference it correctly. Where was it? Well, Luke Shaw faces a battle to play again this season as the operation to remove metal screws in his leg could take longer than the initially expected 3-week period. That's from Mike McGrath. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, get yourself right for next season, I think is the most important thing. There was something about... I know that one. Where was it? Bear with me a minute. There's an article in the Telegraph from James Ducker I want to talk about, because again, Ducker is another person who's briefed by the club, I believe. So I do want to talk about that. But there's something else. Where was it from? Does anybody know where it was from? Oh, here we go. It was from The Athletic. So, Laurie Whitwell says, Eric Ten Hag is not expecting to have total control of club affairs. He will fit into a structure at Manchester United where the manager and recruitment team have equal power of veto. Now, this is important. I did want to talk about this. So, basically, Eric Ten Hag will fit into a structure at Manchester United where he will have equal power of veto. So how would that work? So basically, Eric Ten Hag says, I want to buy Konrad Laimer from RB Leipzig, and recruitment team say no, and therefore it doesn't happen because they've got equal veto. The recruitment team say, we want to buy Calvin Phillips, and Eric Ten Hag says no, and it doesn't happen because he's got power of veto. It's not terrible. It's not quite as bad as what it used to be. I mean, look, we've had situations where Jose Mourinho has said, please sell Anthony Martial, I don't want him part of this squad, and the club have said, no, get on with it. That's just ridiculous. That can't happen again. But this new world looks like it'll be more of a shared responsibility, which, if you've got the right people, isn't bad. I suppose the only query would be that might concern people is, we're dealing with 9 years of failure from people who are still making decisions. John Murtaugh's been at this club for a long time. All right, he's only been a director of football for a year, and hopefully he will be better at his job, but he's been heavily involved in recruitment for years before that. Darren Fletcher's obviously not been here very long. People question what his experience level is. So, look, yeah, I get that. People would say, well, why are those people having the same control as Eric Ten Hag? However, if the system works well, and you've got good people who are recruitment and director of footballs and technical directors, then actually it is good to have shared responsibility because you get more knowledge is power. So look, I'd go back to what Daniel Kirk said. Erik ten Hag is not going to sign a new contract at Manchester United, a contract at Manchester United where he's going to get bent over and not have any power. He will have the sufficient power at the club, I believe. Rajan says Tchouaméni, Rudiger, Kamara, Nunez, Anthony, Johnston and Timber. Denise, thank you. Welcome to the Members Club. Hope new signings can be in for pre-season so Ten Hag can work with them, says Michael Neal. And United needs someone like Matu Elmani at Barca. He has done a great job at moving the high earners out, says Prata. Yeah, look, I think the main things are that Manchester United get this recruitment right. I think the transfer race starts now. Couple of weeks ago, I think we were quite stressed as a fan base because we didn't know who the manager was going to be. There was always the possibility that they'd bottle it and go for Poch. And ultimately, the overriding thing for me and many others was that we're taking the time on the manager, and while we've not got the manager, we can't get the players in. We can be talking to players now. In fact, I know for a fact we're talking to players now and saying, look, Erik ten Hag's the manager. It's not official yet, but, you know, somebody said to me yesterday, well, we can't be talking to players because even if you went to a Kanji and said, we're getting Erik ten Hag, his agent could let the press know. And I went, the press know? The press already know, so it doesn't matter. We're telling players that we've got Erik ten Hag because everyone knows we're getting Erik ten Hag. It's just not official now. So United are very active in the transfer market suddenly. They are approaching players and agents saying this is our vision, this is our man, look how exciting it is. And players are taking note more than they were 3 weeks ago. Even someone like Rudiger is now like, well, at least I know who your manager's going to be. I don't think we'll get Rudiger, but we can say this is the project, and that's really important. So the race definitely begins now. We are capable of going to a Nunez, a Declan Rice, a Rudiger, 3 very difficult transfers to do, and say this is our vision, this is our man, this is what's on offer, we pay well, do you want to come to this club? So we can do that now, and I believe that we will have a lot of our targets done by the end of June. Not because we want to take them on tour to Australia or Bangkok, but because Erik ten Hag starts his job on the start of July, and there's no point in bringing players in at the end of July. It would be a massive disadvantage. Shows how out of touch most Premier League players are. Everton close to getting relegated for the first time in decades, and players are getting pictures for magazines, says Dazzo. AC Milan and Neves and Kunku from right back and Timber from Ajax, cost effective with also great potential, says Jay. But yes, I mean, look, I think this is something to discuss in the coming weeks and months. But if you think about United's past transfer activity, we would sometimes, I know we did it with Pogba, I think we did it with Harry Maguire, we did it with Varane as well, Sancho to a certain extent. We buy them in July. The players end up doing their first training session with United as a new signing when the first team's already been training for 3 or 4 weeks. That's absolutely fine when you've got a settled manager. So last summer, Varane coming into the team, well, the rest of the team knew Solskjaer. He'd been the manager for 2 years. So if Varane comes in, he's always going to be the new boy. The reason you want to get your new transfers in early this time is because on July the 1st, if you're a new signing and you start training with United, it's Harry Maguire's first day with Ten Hag. It's Ronaldo's first day. It's Bruno's first day. You need your new signings to be there on the first day because it's everybody's first day. So I believe United will be very, very active very soon in the transfer market this year because we need to be, certainly. Let me just bring you what was said by the Telegraph because I think this is rather interesting as well. So let me just go back and get you these quotes. Where's the United Stand? TUS United Stand MUFC on Twitter. Here we go. So Ten Hag's remit will be in the first instance to focus on cutting through dressing room cliques by getting players to buy into clear tactical plans and driving individual and collective improvement. He's got enough on his plate with that, a source said. That's from the Telegraph, from James Ducker. Of course, transfers are going to be very important. Of course, long-term goals are going to be very important. But in the short term, he's got a very distinctive, entertaining, high-energy style of football. United have got a very pragmatic, shit style of football. Taking one from the other is going to be a lot of work. I was watching some stuff about Ajax the other night and the way they play and in between lanes and passing triangles and intensity and the amount of goals they score by winning the ball back in the final third with a really oppressive, suffocating press. And I'm like, I already know that we've got players that can't do this. Whether they've been developed or not, I already know we've got players they can't do this. They can't press like this and they can't pass like this. So I'm like, okay, no, what's year one going to look like if he doesn't buy 4 or 5 players? Imagine if he doesn't get 3 or 4 players in And even then, they've got to settle in the Premier League. Like, he's going to try and get Man United to play like Ajax with some of the players that we've got. So it's a huge job. Of course it is. Of course it is. Implementing the playing style, moulding the tactics, developing the talent, picking players and uniting them behind it and sticking rigidly to the task is the job description Man United have outlined to Ten Hag. So yeah, and that's a massive job. Implementing the style, moulding the tactics, developing talent and picking the players and uniting them behind it. Massive job. I mean, imagine that. Eric Ten Hag and Darren Fletcher sits you down and says, right, Eric, in the first week, I want you to implement the playing style, mould the tactics, develop the talent, pick the right players and unite them behind everybody. And then I want you to win the title in your first year. I mean, it's just words. They're just words. And they're motivating words, but they're very difficult words. Because how do you get that team to do all those things in such a short period of time? I'm willing to say this right here, right now. I know that we spoke about it on the Thursday night on the show last night. Sorry, Mo says, why not consider Iheanacho? Works well high. No, he's an ex-City player, and I don't rate him. Mo. Morning. Any news on Darwin Núñez? Watched the game last night, and that performance proves why we need him. We've spoken about it already, Thomas. I might come back to it in a bit, but we spoke about 5 minutes about Núñez. I think he's a bit overpriced. Samuel Lucas saying United will wait for Ten Hag before approaching transfers. Well, he's wrong. He's wrong. He's factually wrong on that. And all journalists have good information and bad information, and he's wrong. Because we were talking about transfers before we even knew who the manager was going to be. We spoke to Akanji in late February. We've let Declan Rice know that we want him 2 months ago. So how can we be waiting to talk about transfers for Ten Hag being official? This is not the case. Mark, I haven't heard anything about Koundé. How do you feel about him? He's good, Carl. He's a good player, but United aren't looking at him. But going back to what I was going to say, I don't know where everybody else is on this, and it's going to upset some people, but I think you've got to be realistic. I think this is about where you're at. And God knows what I'll say in August, because I think we all talk nonsense in August at the start of a season. But honestly, hand on heart, at the moment, I think expecting... I've heard people say he's got to get 4th place next year, otherwise it's a failure. I think that's ridiculous. I really do think it's ridiculous to expect 4th place next year. Of course, the standards of Manchester United, we should expect to be in a title race, but we've also got to be realistic to the damage of the last 9 years, and certainly the damage of the last 9 months. It's not going to get fixed in 9 months. I think that we will have players playing for us next year who are shit. We'll get rid of some of them in the summer, and we'll buy some players, but we won't be ready next season. And I think you disrespect 4th place in the Champions League, in the Premier League next year will be difficult. So I personally think it's just very important that we're in the Europa League, because at least it's another opportunity. And I almost feel that winning the Europa League might be easier than winning 4th place next year. So I'm realistic as to the challenge of next season. I think it will be very, very difficult. Apologies, can't rewatch, catch up on some news. You're doing any more carpool stuff, cooking with Goldbridge? Haven't seen a carpool one for ages. I am, Thomas, I intend to, yeah. I'm just been a bit ill this week, so I'm just sort of trying to keep on top of things. Also, from the Telegraph, Man United have been less interested in appointing another manager like Louis van Gaal and Mourinho, who forcibly seeks a widened power base. Also, they don't want a manager who's not taking the day-to-day lead on the training ground like Solskjaer. Yeah, I think United have learnt a lot of mistake from a lot of things, haven't they? Solskjaer not taking training is something that doesn't get spoken about enough. I spoke about this a little bit time ago, that there seems to be some revisionists who want to try and make out that Solskjaer's reign was good. I mean, you're not even standing on thin ice. You're just walking into a river. Like, it's ridiculous that people try and make out that Solskjaer's reign was anything but bad. He didn't even take the bloody training. Like, it was an embarrassment, really, when you look at it. Samuel Lucas says that Manchester United will not advance with any transfers until they've finalised the deal for Eric Ten Hag to become their next manager. He's expected to be appointed by United before the transfer window formally opens on June 10th. I mean, look, to be fair, he's not wrong, but he's not right either, because we can't announce any transfers before Eric Ten Hag is permanent anyway. It's a bit of a I don't know whether that's been taken out of context or it's a direct quote or he's written an article about it, but it's such a non-story, because it's right, but it's complete common sense. You know, United are not going to advance any transfers until Eric Ten Hag is official. But we can't advance any transfers until the transfer window opens anyway. I mean, what some people will read that is, and they'll get stressed, is they'll go, oh, we're not even going to start talking to transfer targets until Erik ten Hag's official. He might not be official to the end of May. We'll miss out. Well, that's not happening. Because I know for a fact that we're talking to players now and their agents saying Erik ten Hag's going to be the manager. Are you interested in coming to United? And those preliminary talks are taking place. Of course, nothing will be advanced officially on a signing until after Erik ten Hag's been appointed, because Erik ten Hag will be appointed before the transfer window opens. So it's just logic. I wouldn't worry about it. Manchester United are setting up the framework of a possible deal for the Leeds United midfielder Calvin Phillips and are interested in Leipzig forward Nkunku. That's from Manchester Evening News as well. I'm not convinced by this Calvin Phillips story, to be honest. We'll see. I'm not convinced by it. Doesn't mean that Ten Hag wouldn't go for it, but I'm not convinced by it. Manchester United have compiled through scouting reports intended targets for Ten Hag to study before deciding on whether to proceed with negotiations. Sources have stressed that it's vital he has a right to veto any potential deal. And I think that's the most important part as well. Manchester United have compiled quite an exhaustive list of players that they want to bring into the club. And this list could I think this list. I said the funny thing is I said this a while ago, didn't I? As soon as Calvin Phillips broke, I said that's a player that United have scouted. That's not a request from Erik ten Hag. And what I mean by that is there is a list of players: Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Akanji. They're three definitely. Nunez will be another one. They're United recruitment targets. They're not Erik ten Hag targets. And what's happened is they go with that list to Erik ten Hag and he'll go, no Phillips, yes Rice, yes Nunez, no Akanji. And United will go, okay. And then they'll discuss from there. And then Erik ten Hag will say, Timber, he's not on our list, but I want him on our list. And that's what will happen. We needed a big sale like Coutinho for Liverpool, and assuming the current situation, we need at least 2 years to get things in place, says Showa. Thank you very much. Mark, have you heard a rumour on Pogba's contract? 500k a week. Reckon Ten Hag has requested he stays. I can't imagine anyone offering that much. Poor injury record, says Slick. Look, I sort of don't want to do videos on Paul Pogba anymore because he needs to leave the club. But I'm happy to say this. First of all, I like Paul Pogba as a player. I liked it when we bought him. And I think as a talent, he's a fantastic player. Do I want him to stay at Manchester United? Absolutely not. If this football club gives him a contract worth more than 400k a week, I will throw up. I think it's a disgrace. He's been here 6 years. He's not pulled up any trees. He's been decidedly inconsistent. He does not justify 400 grand a week, let alone 500 grand a week. And if we are making a step forward under Erik ten Hag, we're taking a massive step backwards by doing a deal like that. It is Alexis Sanchez all over. Alexis Sanchez was 29 when we did it. Paul Pogba is 29. We're going to burden ourselves with a contract that no one wants to pay now and will never want to play in 2 or 3 years. He's done nothing over 6 years that make me think he's worth that amount of money, and he's done nothing over 6 years that make me think he's going to become worth that money. And also, let's not forget, this is a player that doesn't really have a starting place and hasn't had one for 18 months. Where does Paul Pogba actually play for Man United? I would agree with Ricky on this. We shoehorn him in. Solskjaer shoehorned him in. Ten Hag shoehorns him in. When we play somebody decent, neither of them will play him in a midfield three. And they push him out to the left or the right wing. He doesn't even have a starting place. How can you give somebody 400 grand a week when they don't even have a starting place in your team? This is a 100% a marketing brand recruitment drive, and we've got to stop doing that. If we're keeping Paul Pogba at the club because he's the best midfielder in Europe, give him 400 grand a week. We're trying to keep Paul Pogba at the club because he's one of the biggest marketing brands in football. And we've got to stop doing that. It completely undermines the manager. Do you think Erik ten Hag wants to keep Paul Pogba at the football club? No. I think he'll have watched him and gone, I need a player that works his arse off and works in my system. I don't think Paul Pogba works in his system. So, yeah, let's go and buy a player to sell a load of shirts and be popular to the worldwide fan base. I just think it's ridiculous. And I don't believe it's true. To be fair, I don't think it's true. But if it is true, there are still problems within that football club. And look, Erik ten Hag is a step in the right direction. But can they turn their back on this money, social media, fucking winning team bullshit? Probably not. And that's the problem. And I keep saying this. I'll applaud the club for appointing Erik ten Hag. It is a step in the right direction, but if you think they're going to turn their back on some of the stupid things they've done over the last 9 years, you're going to be sadly disappointed, because they're not. They're still going to be about the bottom line, and that is dividends, isn't it? So we'll see. But look, the saving grace is Paul Pogba would be an absolute idiot to stay at this football club, because he'd be a mercenary to stay at this football club. Why on earth would Paul Pogba, having not been in a title race for 6 years and at 29, stay at Man United? He could only be staying here for the money. So, and I don't think he will. I think Paul Pogba, as I say, I like Paul Pogba. It's not worked out at United, and I believe that he values his football career enough that he won't stay at United, because he could be he won't be in the Champions League next year, but he can be, and he won't be fighting for a title next year, but he can be if he leaves. There we go. Anyway, look, we have actually, talking about Pogba, we've got of course it's Thursday, so 2 o'clock today, we've got the preview for the Norwich game. Woohoo! Man United are playing at the weekend. We'll probably win this weekend as well. We'll be a winning team pictures this weekend without being on the training ground. So, Harry Maguire, Scooby-Doo, Fred, Ronaldo, get your admins ready. You can all be like that. We go again on Saturday night because you beat the bottom of the league. I've jinxed that now, haven't I? I shouldn't have said that. But no, seriously, get your admins ready. Don't give them Easter off. It might be the only time they do it for the rest of the season, because you've got Liverpool and Arsenal next week. They can have next week off. So get your pictures ready. Big smiley faces. We go again. Winning team and all that shit. Saturday night. Anyway, we've got the preview. I mean, we should beat Norwich, shouldn't we? We've got the preview at 2 o'clock. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video, and I will speak to you all at 2. If you want to become a member, click the join button and you can check out the Timber versus Maguire video. And also, don't forget OneFootball. Download it for all your latest football news. You can scan the code with your phone on the QR code as well. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for watching.